Hey, my loves. Been thinking about something today and I just wanted to share. There's a version of burnout that nobody really talks about. It's not the dramatic breakdown, it's not the bathroom floor moment, it's not the midlife cliche. The one I'm talking about looks like this. It looks like your life still works on paper. You have the career, the income, the family, the reputation, and yet it no longer fits in your body. You can still perform, you can still hold it all. You just feel more and more like a stranger moving through your own days. And that was me. I did that in banking, in real estate, in healthcare. From the outside, I looked like the woman who could always figure it out. Inside, I was quietly asking, is this really my life? Is this what the next 20 years are going to feel like? So, this is the story of how I got there, what it did to me, and the language I finally found for it. I'm not here to give you a 3 step fix. I just want you to hear yourself in someone else's story and know you're not the only one who feels like this. So, if you stay with me to the end, I'm going to share the one question that finally broke that open for me. And it's the question that I asked myself at my own kitchen table, and I could not unhear it once it landed. It's a simple question, but if it's the right time for you, it might be the one that quietly rearranges how you see your own life. I want you to picture this with me. It's late in the evening, the house is finally quiet, there are dishes in the sink that you meant to rinse hours ago. Your phone is face down on the counter. The email tabs are closed, and technically your day is over. This is supposed to be the time when you rest, but instead, it's the hour when people like us quietly come apart. It's not the dramatic TV version. It's no screaming, no suitcase on the porch, no catastrophic midlife crisis. It's just that familiar moment when the noise dies down and a question you've been out running all day pulls up a chair beside you. Is this really my life? That question has found me in 3 different industries in 3 different costumes. It found me in banking, it found me in real estate, and it found me in healthcare. It also found me in several business ventures and entrepreneur ventures that I embarked upon. And then it found me loudest when I was a single mother in my 40s, reinventing myself yet again, standing in a different kitchen, wondering how someone who looked so together on the outside could feel this misaligned on the inside. This is not a story about burnout in the way we usually talk about burnout. It's more of a story of identity. It's a story about what happens when your life still looks great on paper, but it really no longer fits in your body. My hope is that as I tell the truth of my own path, you'll hear enough of yourself in it that something in you softens and says, okay, it's not just me. There's actually language for this. So, in my 20s, I learned how to win at capitalism. I don't mean that in a flashy way. I didn't rule the world. I mean, I figured out how to study a system, understand its rules, and then work those rules until they gave me all the markers of success they were designed to hand out. Banking was my first big arena. On the surface, it was simple: clear performance metrics, visible targets, logical steps. Hit the numbers, get the promotion. Show up the way they want you to show up, get the money, get the title, get the status. Started as a teller, and I became the main office branch manager in less than 2 years. When I left the industry, I was a senior vice president, a project manager in business marketing. It's easy to measure, easy to prove. I learned how to dress the part, how to talk to clients. I learned how to be the calm one in tense conversations about money. And I learned how to hold other people's anxiety while hiding my own. From the outside, it looked exactly like what it was supposed to look like, a young woman on the rise. I had a nice office, had a nice salary, had a LinkedIn profile that made sense. It was the kind of life that people from back home could point to and say, look at Tammy, she did it. And in many ways, I did. I had. What I didn't see back then was the invisible price tag taped to that version of success. There is a particular kind of exhaustion that comes from wearing a role so well for so long that other people start to believe the role is you. In banking, I became the one who can handle it. I was the steady one, the strong one, the responsible one. I was the one that if something went sideways, they just said, send it to her, she'll fix it. I wore that identity like a tailored suit. My ex-husband even reminded me once that I wasn't a bank manager at home. But it was who I was. It was my success identity. And in that season, it made sense. It was survival. It was proof. It was safety. It was a way of saying to the world, I belong here, I've earned my spot, and I'm not going anywhere. But even back then, there were cracks in the costume. I would feel them late at night, driving home in the dark, my body buzzing from caffeine and cortisol. I'd look over at the other cars at a red light and wonder, do you feel like this too? Is everyone this tired? At first, the question came in whispers. Is this what the next 20 years are going to feel like? I did what a lot of high achieving people do when the inner questions start to get too loud. I just turned up the volume on everything else. I worked harder. I stayed later. I became more impressive. I could handle it all. From the outside, that looks a lot like ambition. But from the inside, if you're honest with yourself, it feels a little more like running. My second big chapter was real estate. On paper, it was a smart move. I had more autonomy, there was more upside, more direct impact. It felt like I was choosing freedom. And real estate rewarded everything I'd already learned to be. I was already a hustler. I was already a negotiator. I was already an emotional shock absorber. I was already a problem solver. I was the one who could answer the phone at 11 p.m. and handle the crisis. I could talk to owners. I could take care of tenants. I could answer someone's phone call, hold their biggest financial decision with them, and make them feel safe. It's what I did. If you had seen my calendar in those days, you might have felt tired just looking at it. There were leases and showings and inspections and last minute changes and school pickups, dinners, emails, text messages that never stopped. Layer on the invisible column you can't see in a planner, and that looks like emotional labor and family dynamics and just being the default person for everything. You know, there is a very specific high that comes with being known as the one who can carry it all. People call you strong. and they say, I don't know how you do it. They mean it as a compliment. And honestly, part of me liked it because I've survived a lot and I can carry a lot. That's real. But there's a price to be paid for that kind of strength. I learned that I traded presence for responsibility. And there's another part that's usually quieter that starts whispering, I am so tired. Not just need a vacation tired, but soul tired. What started to scare me in real estate wasn't that I couldn't perform, because I could. I could still flip the switch and be on whenever I needed to. What scared me was how thin the winds started to feel. I would close an agreement, look at the numbers, get the congratulatory text, and feel maybe a quick little blip of relief, maybe a flicker of excitement, and then nothing. It slid right off me. It was like my brain registered, we did it, but my body couldn't take it in. The success didn't land. And maybe you know that feeling. You hit the target, you get the promotion, you buy the house, you buy the car, you cross the finish line. And instead of a deep sense of yes, you feel tired, numb, exhausted, immediately focused on the next thing. And from the outside, that gets labeled as burnout. But from the inside, for me, it felt less like burnout and more like something I started calling identity lag. The person my life was built around and the person I was becoming were no longer the same person. But my calendar hadn't gotten the memo yet. So my third big chapter was healthcare. By then, I thought I was being wise. I wanted to do the work that matters, I told myself, and I wanted to do something more purposeful, something that served other humans in a visible way. And there was purpose in it. There were real lives, real stakes, and real impact. But here's the thing that I didn't yet understand. I brought the same survival built identity with me. It was a new industry, but the same internal rules. Be the one who can handle it. Be the one who understands the system. Be the one who can hold everyone else's anxiety. Don't need too much. Don't rock the boat. And don't fall apart. I was a rad tech and I came in for stroke call, so it was the perfect job for me. From the outside, my story was very tidy. I went from banking to real estate to healthcare. I was a woman who could succeed anywhere. I was adaptable and strong and resilient. People said things like, "You're incredible. I could never do what you do. You're such an inspiration. You always land on your feet." And I'd smile and nod and say thank you because, well, that's what you do. But inside, the gap between who people thought I was and who I actually felt like was getting wider. The misalignment wasn't just about work, it was in my body. It started showing up as thyroid issues that zapped my energy, or sleep that wasn't really rest, or a nervous system that lived in a low simmer, or a few relationships that suffered from my ability to fix everything. If you've ever sat in a meeting or on a Zoom or in a boardroom and watched yourself participate, saying all the right things, nodding at the right times, sounding exactly like you're supposed to sound, while some deeper part of you stands off to the side thinking, who is this? Well, you already know the feeling I'm talking about. That's not really classic burnout. It's not laziness, and it's definitely not being grateful enough. That's yourself quietly saying, I don't want to live as this version of me anymore. And that's terrifying when you're responsible for other humans, when your income supports more than just you, when entire systems depend on you continuing to play the role you're so good at. So, what do we do when that realization lands? Well, most of us try to fix it in ways that don't threaten the structure. We try work life balance, we download productivity apps, we do yoga or take magnesium or listen to podcasts about boundaries. We go on weekend retreats and we cry in a circle and come back determined to do it differently this time. And some of it helps momentarily. Your sleep improves a little, your energy lifts a little bit. You maybe say no to one thing that you would have automatically said yes to before. But if the same old identity is still at the center of your life, if the person running the show is still the survival self who learned to win by overfunctioning, well, then everything eventually reorganizes around that and the misalignment returns. There's one night in particular that lives in my body. I was in my 40s, a single mother, and I was carrying a lot again. From the outside, it looked like I was a woman who had it all together. The school runs were done. Work was handled. Homework was handled. The house was functioning. The bills were paid. Bath time was done. Everyone had been fed. Everything was mostly on time. It was the kind of day that most people will call productive. I would have called it productive. That night, once everything was finally quiet, I sat at my kitchen table and for whatever reason, I just started mentally rewinding the day hour by hour. I don't know if you've ever done that. Just look back in detail at everything you held and decided, answered, absorbed, adjusted for during a whole day. I had even remembered to drop the cupcakes for my daughter's class with a little reminder from her teacher. But by the time I rewound all the way back to the morning, I genuinely thought, how on earth did I do all that in one day? I didn't think that in a proud way. I thought it in a slightly horrified way. It was like looking at a stranger's to-do list and thinking, this is not even reasonable. And then realizing, no, that was me. That's me every day. That's my life. And people like to use words like strong and resilient for that. But sitting there at that table, it didn't feel like strength. It felt like evidence. It felt like evidence that I knew exactly how to abandon myself in sophisticated ways. It was evidence that I could override my own needs almost indefinitely. And it was evidence that the world would keep rewarding me as long as I kept doing it. And then I knew very, very clearly I could keep living like this. My body would probably let me for a while longer. My bank account would continue to benefit. Other people's lives would continue to be smoothed by my overfunctioning. But I didn't want to live the rest of my life this way. That was the real midlife crisis for me. It wasn't a flashy act of rebellion. It was more like a quiet sentence. I don't want my daughter to grow up thinking this is what strong looks like. And then underneath that, I don't want to finally arrive at the beautiful life I worked so hard for, only to realize I was never actually in it. We have all the language now: burnout, overwhelm, stress, anxiety, decision fatigue, and it's useful to a point. But there's a flavor of this experience that those words don't quite reach. Burnout often sounds like, I can't do this anymore. What I see in myself, in other leaders, and high achievers in midlife is more like, I can still do this. I just don't want to be this person in order to keep it all going. That's a different problem. That's not a nervous system that's simply depleted. That's a self that has outgrown its own disguise. Your life is still organized around an older version of you, a survival-built identity who knew exactly how to overfunction and hold everyone else together, prove herself, earn her place. And she did that job beautifully, amazingly. She built this life. She got you here. But the you who exists now, the one who has seen some things, who has survived multiple seasons, who has different values and different longings and different limits, just doesn't want to be run by her anymore. That tension between the life that still works and the self that's quietly saying no more is what I mean when I talk about misalignment or identity lag, or the feeling that your life no longer fits in your body. It's why the fixes that used to work don't land anymore. You can still take the vacation, you can change the job title, you can get the raise, you can redecorate the house, you can hire the coach, you can download the meditation app. But the reality is, the story about who you have to be to keep your world from falling apart doesn't change. Nothing really changes. You go right back into the same loop. If you've been listening to this or reading it and quietly thinking, well, this sounds like me, the successful but just not quite settled thing, the my life looks good but I'm not actually in it thing, the midlife questions that don't have easy answers, the difference between burnout and whatever this is, I want you to hear this clearly. There is nothing wrong with you. You are not ungrateful. You are not broken. You are not failing at resilience. You're just waking up. You're noticing that the career you built, the relationships you hold, the money you earn, the leadership role you inhabit, all of it was constructed around a version of you that did not have the information you have now. It was a version of you who was doing her best with what she had, a version of you who maybe had to overfunction to survive. It was a version of you who never learned how to be powerful without disappearing herself. And if you feel like your life doesn't fit anymore, it doesn't automatically mean you need to burn it all down. Sometimes, yes, big outer changes happen. I went through a divorce. I went through another job change. But often, The deeper work starts in much smaller, quieter ways. Admitting, even just to yourself in a journal or in the dark of your bedroom, I don't want to do this as her anymore. Letting yourself tell the truth about which parts of your day feel like self-betrayal. Noticing when you hear yourself say, I can handle it, and gently asking, do I actually want to? Allowing the idea that you might deserve a version of success that does not require you to abandon your own body. That's the path that I've been on. It hasn't been a clean, linear, Instagrammable transformation in the least. It's been more like a very slow, messy, very human renegotiation of who gets to be in charge inside my own life. It's meant disappointing some expectation, both my own and other people's. It's meant telling the truth in rooms where I used to just smile and carry on. It's meant making choices that my old self would have found irresponsible or selfish or too much. I've been told a lot that I'm too much. It's also meant feeling for the first time in a long time like I actually recognize myself when I look at my own days. So I'm going to leave you with one question, and it's the one that quietly rearranged everything for me when I finally let myself sit with it. If nothing external changed in the next 12 months, if there were no sudden exit, no dramatic career pivot, no lottery ticket, no divorce, no new romance, no magical rescue. If your job, your family, your responsibilities, your calendar all stayed basically the same, who would you have to become on the inside for that to feel like a life you could actually live in? If nothing out there shifted for a while, who would I need to be in here for this to be a life I can inhabit? Not just manage, not just perform, and not just survive. A life I could actually live in. Live in. If your honest answer is, I don't know, or not this, well, you're not alone. You are in the quiet company of a lot of high achieving, high responsibility humans who are starting to realize that their real midlife crisis isn't about buying a car or blowing up your life. It's about finally telling the truth about who you've been, who you are now, and who you're no longer willing to be, no matter how much applause that old role still gets. I don't have a 3-step fix, formula, or a 5-point plan for you. What I have is a story and a language and words and a deep knowing in my own bones that if your life no longer fits in your body, you're not crazy. You're just ready for a different relationship with yourself. And if this story has reached you wherever it finds you, it's because some part of you has already been asking these questions. You didn't imagine it. You're not too late. And you're not the only one. You're really just awake. And that in itself is the beginning. You don't have to rush past it. You don't have to fix it. Just be honest with yourself. That honesty, quiet and as unglamorous as it is where my story started to bend in a different direction. And it might be where yours begins to as well. So, thank you for staying this far with me. Have a great day.